Hell hath no fury like Dracula's woman scorned. Castlevania is the long-awaited adaptation of the beloved video game series of the same name. The story takes place at the very beginning of the series that follows the first man to ever fight Dracula from Castlevania 3, Trevor Belmont. Castlevania Lament of Innocence? Never heard of it. Leon? No, what does this have to do with Resident Evil 4? The story goes that one day a woman named Lisa travels to Castle Dracula because she has a bigger pair of balls than Tom Cruise. She meets the Count himself and asks for his knowledge to become a proper doctor to help those in need. In response, the church gets uppity because science is forbidden and they're hell-bent on preventing mankind from advancing technologically for a century or two. Otherwise, we could have had SpaceX back in the 1920s, and Iron Sky could have been a reality by World War II. Anyway, Lisa is burned at the stake because we all know women aren't allowed to know things. Otherwise, they might demand suffrage. Then Dracula flips the Vlad the Impaler switch and equalizes the suffering for everyone. Thus, the series makes a grandiose attempt to break the stigma of video game to film adaptations sucking more than Shaquille O'Neal's free throw percentage. It is nice to see how brutal the series is supposed to be. Castlevania first came out on the NES, so all the sprites were so colorful and bright, which sucked the horror from the experience like recoloring Pennywise as a Pride Parade float. Consider the tone set when a goblin comes down and smacks a bitch up like he's Bing Crosby. She spins around, her body is here, her jaw's over there, and the goblins reenact the massacre in From Dusk Till Dawn by repainting Targovista red with the people because they couldn't find enough goats. This is how Castlevania should feel. Brutal and unapologetic as a horror story should. The action would look better if the frame rate didn't look like you were gaming at 15 frames per second like when Trevor fights the Cyclops. The beam the Cyclops fires looks great, while Trevor slows down to the frame rate of, well, the original Castlevania. Also, the Cyclops is pretty much the only creature thought out. The goblins are copy-pasted all over the place, and while the weird blue glowing hellhound thing is neat in theory, I don't think it quite reflects the world at large. With a franchise as expansive as Castlevania and a bestiary thicker than a King James Bible, the filmmakers could have at least looked up a creature or two for fans that would have better fit the theme. This introductory season suffers from a tug of war. There are many moderate and small details that work while tugging against large issues, creating a clash of views. On the one hand, I subjectively wanted much more from the first season. Being only 4 episodes, it is hard to tell a full story. This means a rushed pace and skipped detail that leave questions unanswered or less fleshed out. Take, for example, how is it that Greshit is built on such an expansive castle underneath it? This isn't up to code. Half the walls aren't load-bearing and they fall apart once Trevor and Sypha fall through them. Alucard, how many corners did you cut to get that all built? I'm gonna have to report you to OSHA. Also, the series is called Castlevania. With only 4 episodes in the first season, Trevor and Sypha falling into Alucard's chamber is quite literally skipping the whole castle half of the title. Now, on the other hand, objectively, 4 episodes to start a series isn't a bad idea. This allows for a short, concise story where specific strengths and weaknesses can be illuminated. For example, the writing isn't half bad and the dialogue is well spoken. Although some of the lines were so quiet, if I didn't have subtitles on, I wouldn't know what was said. I'm looking at you, Bishop. Also, the characters are quite good and you get a sense of who they are. Due to the short length, it wouldn't be any skin off the filmmakers' backs to adjust the characters in a later season like Marvel did when they first introduced Black Panther and Spider-Man. Odd that Grant Dynasty wasn't introduced, though. I'm sure they'll introduce him in later seasons. Overall, it's not a bad introductory season. It suffers from constant give and take, which holds it back, but it still hits most of the right notes. The voice acting is solid, and Richard Armitage commands the lead as Trevor. There is only one scene of repeated animation, which sucks they used because they were so close, but it wasn't a crutch through the series. Considering how bad this series could have been as a movie with Paul W.S. Anderson originally at the helm to direct a movie, I'm glad that Netflix is where it's settled. Now a proper story can be built upon this foundation. Now I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe for more weekly reviews, and I'll see you next time.